Tonight, the former First Minister Alex Salmond launches fresh legal action against the Scottish Government, accusing Nicola Sturgeon and other senior women in government of misconduct in public office.
Also making the headlines, students at Scottish universities will be asked to disclose any criminal charges for serious crimes such as rape after a successful campaign from a rape survivor.
Universities can't properly put safeguarding measures in place if they don't even know that there's a risk. So my concern has always been about the female student population and anyone that might come in contact with my rapist or any other potential predators.
In sport, Philippe Clement says Rangers players must step up their performances, starting at Pittodrie.
And I'm here in Edinburgh for the opening of the spectacular Castle of Lights.
I'm Courtney Cameron in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. The former First Minister Alex Salmond has launched fresh legal action against the Scottish Government over their handling of abuse allegations towards him. He's accused Nicola Sturgeon and other senior women in government of misconduct in public office.
First Minister Humza Yousaf said the Scottish Government will robustly defend itself. Mr Salmond's already received over £500,000 in legal compensation after the Court of Session ruled in 2019 that the Scottish Government's handling of complaints against him were unlawful. Vanessa Taff reports.
Former First Ministers, close friends and allies turned foes. Alex Salmond's latest legal bid claims Nicola Sturgeon and other senior Scottish Government officials conducted themselves improperly. He's already won a case against the Scottish Government in 2019 after its investigation into harassment complaints against him were deemed unlawful. Mr Salmond was paid more than £500,000 in legal costs. This is separate from the criminal trial in 2020 when Mr Salmond was cleared of sexually assaulting 9 women while he was First Minister. In a statement today, the Alba Party leader said not one single person has been held accountable and that the day of reckoning for the Scottish Government's record of misfeasance on this grand scale will inevitably come. His lawyer claimed Nicola Sturgeon and the former Permanent Secretary Leslie Evans were amongst those who conducted themselves improperly, in bad faith and beyond their powers, with the intention of injuring Mr Salmond. Among his allegations are that confidential documents were criminally leaked, documents were concealed, and that the courts were misled. Nicola Sturgeon said she utterly refutes the claims. She answered questions before a parliamentary committee for 8 hours in 2021. Salmond's actions are a matter for him. Appearing at a conference alongside other political leaders this afternoon, the First Minister Humza Yousaf had this to say.
Unsurprisingly, to anyone listening or watching, the Scottish Government will defend its position robustly, but I'll say no more because it is a live case.
It'll take some time before this battle between Alex Salmond and the Scottish Government comes to the courts again. When it does, 2 former First Ministers, former close colleagues, could potentially be pitted against each other. Vanessa Taff, STV News.
Let's go to our political correspondent, Paris Goutsianis. And Paris, politically, how damaging could this be?
Potentially very damaging for the SNP at a time when First Minister Humza Yousaf has no shortage of problems to choose from. And this was one problem that the SNP must have hoped had gone away, even though Alex Salmond has always threatened to take further legal action to hold individuals accountable for the way that complaints against him were handled by the Scottish Government, as Vanessa said in her report there, unlawfully. Whatever the outcome, having one former First Minister take legal action against another and the government he used to lead simply adds to the sense of mounting trouble for the nationalists. This follows a pair of high-profile defections, the row over Michael Matheson's iPad roaming charges, and of course that ongoing police investigation into SNP finances. Humza Yousaf can at least say that this is one issue that predates his time, but that's little comfort if it's rumbling through the courts during a general election campaign.
Paris, thank you.
Scottish universities will begin asking applicants to disclose any criminal charges for serious crimes such as rape, after a campaign from a survivor who says her rapist was allowed to live with women who were unaware he was awaiting trial.
Ellie Wilson says universities are unable to properly safeguard students without having tools in place to make them aware of any possible risks. Lewis Mickey reports.
Ellie was horrified to discover that while she waited to see her rapist face court, he'd been enrolled at Edinburgh University without declaring he'd been charged with attacking her. Daniel McFarlane was jailed last year, but Ellie was still troubled with what could have happened as he studied alongside unsuspecting women.
My rapist was actually living in a flat with only female flatmates, and they had no idea that he was a rapist. And one of the young women had experienced sexual violence herself, and she felt so violated to find out that she had been unknowingly living with a rapist. Universities can't properly put safeguarding measures in place if they don't even know that there's a risk. So my concern has always been about the female student population and anyone that might come in contact with my rapist or any other potential predators.
This guidance will only apply to universities. Campaigners want to see it expanded to encompass colleges too, after it was uncovered that rapist Adam Graham, also known as Isla Bryson, attended a beauty course at Ayrshire College while awaiting trial.
What I really want to see is national guidance introduced to deal with cases of sexual misconduct in higher education, because at the moment individual institutions take their own approach and there can be a real lack of consistency.
Universities Scotland is the body which represents all 19 institutions across the country. All of them have agreed a consistent approach is the way forward.
There will be a mandatory question asking students to declare if they've got a relevant unspent criminal conviction or criminal charge. That process will also be repeated on an annual basis, which is a significant improvement on what's gone before.
I think this is a positive step. I think most people, and particularly most students, would be horrified to know that this hasn't been the case till now. I mean, it seems to me like a real safeguarding loophole that somebody can be waiting trial for a crime as serious as rape. And universities don't even necessarily know that this is the case. So I think this is absolutely right, and I think it's credit to survivors like Ellie Wilson who have raised this safeguarding loophole and campaigned for change.
For campaigners like Ellie, this is a welcome development, but she insists there's still more that can be done. Lewis Mickey, STV News.
Drug experts believe Scotland is unprepared for an influx of synthetic opioids, which are more potent than heroin. Fears are being raised in a week that saw the formal opening of a new multi-million-pound forensic laboratory and the UK's largest ever seizure of the super-strength street drugs.
The Scottish Government say the facility in Glasgow will help build knowledge of emerging threats, as well as provide much-needed information to police, procurators and families. Here's our chief reporter, Sharon Frew.
A candle lit for each loved one lost to drugs. Staff who organised last night's event in Glasgow say they hope the service offers some comfort to its members. This charity helps guide relatives as they cope during the investigation of a drug death. That can include waiting for the results of toxicology tests.
The sooner that people receive those answers, the sooner they're able to process and begin to deal with their grief and the loss of their loved one.
This new £6 million facility is expected to speed up that process and provide information for police and prosecutors following an unexplained death.
I think we'd all accept that the length of time that families sometimes have to wait for answers is unacceptable. There is a great collective effort to reduce those waiting times.
Around 3,800 samples a year will be processed here from across Scotland. As well as post-mortem toxicology tests, scientists will examine drugs seized by police. Warnings have been issued about a group of potent synthetic opioids called nitazines, which have been detected in both Scottish communities and prisons.
I'm always alarmed to see the new and novel substances, as well as how harmful those substances can be for people. And I think the intelligence and the information that's provided from this laboratory and others is so important in that fight against drugs crime.
Synthetic opioids have been the main driver of soaring drug deaths in the United States.
We have learnt a lot from the international experience of substances such as fentanyl and synthetic opioids in North America. So we know the damage that these substances can cause, so we need to be super alert to their prevalence.
Yesterday, police in North London confirmed they made the largest ever UK seizure of synthetic opioids. They arrested 11 people and seized 150,000 tablets. They believe they were being sold on the dark web.
It's probably a drop in the ocean to what's actually being produced, so it would be naive to think that somewhere so close to home that's had such a big seizure we're not going to see similar. The most worrying thing is that people won't know that it's in the drug supply that they're buying, so it could be in their heroin or it could be in benzodiazepines. We are not prepared for an influx of netizens and we need to get much more ahead of the game.
The Justice Secretary believes the intelligence from this new facility will play a crucial role in the response to this emerging threat. Sharon Frew, STV News.
Police Scotland's new Chief Constable has apologised for using a police patrol car to drive her to England during Storm Babette. Joe Farrell described the 120-mile journey from Edinburgh to Northumberland as an error of judgment after her train was cancelled.
Relatives who lost a loved one to COVID say they were repeatedly lied to by medical staff and have been silenced in their search for answers. Speaking to the Scottish COVID-19 inquiry today, members of the COVID bereaved group spoke of how their relatives died alone in hospital, followed by restricted funerals with a sealed coffin. Here's our political reporter, Laura Alderman.
He had an absolute heart of gold. He would do anything for anybody.
When Pamela's brother went into Ninewells Hospital with COVID in 2021, she never imagined it would be the last time she'd see him alive. James ended up on a ventilator and died alone.
No, I've been numb. And this hasn't just impacted on me, it's impacted on my children. I've not been able to be a mum, be a granny. You know, every day I try. But you know, I can't do it. It's never left. It's never left. It's just I'm stuck for that very day that he went into hospital and I've not been able to move on. There's no closure. There's no closure. No answers. Answers would give you closure. That's all I want is answers.
She and other members of the Scottish COVID bereaved group arrived at the COVID inquiry in Edinburgh today with the hope of finding those answers. Carol Ann lost her brother to COVID and then her fiancé died just months later.
We're coming up into a new year shortly, 2024. I'll never be able to move into any new year as I'm stuck in that year 2020. The year my life fell apart. Same funeral directors my brother was in, same room my brother's coffin was in, the same crematorium my brother was in, the same metal trolley my brother was on. Reception should never have been allowed to triage any patients, let alone a man who was presenting with a serious problem. She was allowed to play lottery with someone's life, and sadly that life was lost.
Their lawyer is repeating calls for any more ministers' WhatsApps to be handed over to the inquiry, although former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon insists she was not in any WhatsApp groups.
If you then have your Deputy First Minister stand up in August 2021 and say there will be a public inquiry, then you retain your WhatsApps. And then if you subsequently have lawyers going back and forth to the inquiry and getting notices telling you you must retain this material, and see on the front pages of the national newspaper that we are getting our hands on Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock's WhatsApps, why should they be any different?
The inquiry is still in its first phase and is investigating Scotland's response to the pandemic, with the hope that lessons can be learned. Laura Alderman, STV News, Edinburgh.
Now, if you've seen any of the offers being advertised, you won't need reminding that today is Black Friday, a tradition imported from America where discounted deals are used to encourage shoppers to spend early for Christmas. But many Scottish retailers are reporting footfall at their shops is down this year, and they're urging us to support local businesses rather than chains and online giants. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
It's just a month till Christmas, and while Black Friday messaging is hard to miss, many shoppers in Falkirk are managing to contain their enthusiasm.
You know it's Black Friday today?
Yes, I do. So I was just having a wee look to see if there are actually any bargains or they're just really the same prices they normally are.
Yeah, you seem a bit sceptical.
A little bit, yes, aye.
There's specific things I need to get, so it's not that I just go out and look at everything. Haven't even started.
Do you know today is Black Friday?
Yes.
Is that a factor at all?
I know it's Black Friday, yes, but I'm going to get something on Amazon, I think.
It's fair to say the vibe of Black Friday 2023 is a bit different from when we used to see shopping centres open at 6 a.m. and people literally fighting over cheap tellies. This time the phrase seems to be used most often in the emails we've been bombarded with in the last few weeks from online retailers.
Pauline sells ladies' clothes for special occasions and says there's no substitute for the experience of a physical shop.
You're buying blind online, you don't really know what you're getting until it comes through the door. So sometimes it looks like the product you've ordered, sometimes it doesn't. Where when you come in independent, they know their stock, they know it really, really well, so they can put things together for you, give you that service that you used to get years ago, and we try and encourage that.
And with concerns about the cost of living making people buy less, businesses here are keen that whatever you're spending, you do it locally.
We have noticed quite a decrease in footfall since April this year, and that's been as a result, we believe firmly, a lot down to the cost of living crisis. Businesses are finding things very challenging at the moment, so I would urge everybody to make sure they are shopping local this Christmas. It means the world to the businesses.
For the wider retail industry, there's a realisation that cut price offers are now about more than just a single day.
Discounting this year has been necessary really to get customers to spend at all. We've seen that throughout the year, that consumers will absolutely buy products if they think it's necessary, but they'll buy the discounted one and perhaps ignore the full price premium product next to it. So it's a real challenge to get customers to spend at all. Discounting, sales, deals, that's a big part of it. I suspect the Boxing Day sales will still be an event though.
And if you're keen for those, just 32 days to go. Gordon Cree, STV News, Falkirk.
Other stories in the West, and the body of a woman who went missing in the River Kelvin last month has been recovered. Katrina Winters was last seen on October the 11th when police received reports of concern for 2 people in the river. The body of 59-year-old Ms Winters 2 weeks ago. Police say there are no suspicious circumstances. A man is fighting for his life in hospital following an assault in Glasgow. The 31-year-old was found with serious injuries on Wynford Road on Monday night. He was taken to the city's Royal Infirmary. Officers are appealing for witnesses to the assault. The union representing the city's cleansing workers say Glasgow's rat population has become a health hazard. It comes as part of Festival Park in Govan has been cordoned off due to a rodent infestation. Caroline Lewis reports.
Warning signs declaring a potential risk to life. Not a typical sight in a public park, but that is now the case here. Bait traps full of poison are dotted along the fence line in a bid to get a rat problem under control. A member of the public captured this rodent while walking in the park, just one of many.
Until we start working together as communities to make it less favourable for rats in our environment, it's going to be an uphill battle. So fly tipping is on the increase. In this economy, it costs money to get rid of waste properly. So, littering is on the increase. It is on the increase. I wouldn't say we have any sort of epidemic plagues of rats, but it is on the increase.
Well, the fence is here to keep children and animals away from the poison, but if you look down to my left, the black boxes with the poison in them have been put just centimetres inside the fence and just a few feet from the main path through the park and the children's playground. But it's not the only part of the city that has issues with rats. In September, STV reported a similar situation in Scotstoun. In fact, last year, sightings of rats were reported to the council nearly 8,000 times, more than 20 every week, a rise of 46% since pre-pandemic levels. This footage was filmed by cleansing workers earlier in the year. The union that represents them says more action must be taken.
Telling the council that it's a daily occurrence, it's having a detrimental effect on our members' mental health and well-being. It's becoming extremely dangerous. 2 years ago we had 2 members that are hospitalised because of rat bites and scratches. I think it's absolutely shocking. I said this should be dealt with years ago. They use the same rhetoric, there's rats in every city. That's absolutely fine, but not to the extent. There's a massive problem here, and the problem is because he cuts. I've made this clear. You cut environmental health, you cut pest control, you cut cleansing, which is street cleansing, refuse collection. The front line of combat in this, you're going to have a major issue, and that's exactly what we're seeing.
The council, however, said the issue was caused by well-meaning residents who have been leaving food in the park for wildlife. In a statement, a spokesman said, "We are removing this food as we find it, and bait boxes have been stationed appropriately. To ensure pest control treatments are as effective as possible, we urge people to stop leaving food." Festival Park's rodents' days may be numbered, but with Glasgow recently branded the rat capital of Scotland, it's becoming increasingly challenging to keep the population under control. Caroline Lewis, STV News.
Ronnie is here with the sport, and back to the domestic league, Ronnie.
Yes, indeed, John, with a huge Premiership weekend coming up. Good evening, folks. Philippe Clement says his Rangers players must step up their performances as they get set for a busy fixture schedule. The Ibrox side face a trip to Pittodrie on Sunday, with Clement rubbishing claims Aberdeen try harder when they play Rangers.
International break over, and it's back down to business for Philippe Clement and his players. A hectic festive period is on the horizon, with 12 games in 37 days, including the League Cup final and a trip to rival Celtic. And despite an unbeaten start as Rangers manager, the Belgian knows his players must improve.
We have to step up. If we want to keep the same results, we have to step up. There's no other choice. It's also what I want. I don't want players who are satisfied and think that's their end level. I think in this group, with a lot of work and a lot of concentration, they still can grow a lot as a team and as individuals.
The last time Rangers faced Aberdeen, it was the game at which Michael Beale lost his job. A 3-1 defeat at Ibrox, with the Englishman sacked the next day.
I remember that the team was very down. There was a very, like a dark cloud around the dressing room, I would say, which now feels like it's lifted. There's a different buzz in the changing room, within the group. Confidence, as said it before, is, I feel, pretty high at the moment, based on, or just because of the recent results and the performances as well. So yeah, very different, very, very different.
The rivalry between the two clubs has led to claims Aberdeen try harder against Rangers than other teams in the league, a suggestion Clement isn't having.
I cannot believe that players are more motivated for one game than for another game. For sure not where I'm a manager, because then the story will be very short for these players if they're not motivated for every game. So I'm focused on my players, what they have to do.
Nico Raskin and Kemar Roof remain out for the match, with Ryan Jack a doubt to face his former club.
Craig Gordon and Craig Halkett are on the verge of returning to first-team action. That's according to Hearts boss Stephen Naismith. Meanwhile, Nick Montgomery has praised Jair Tavares for rescuing his Hibernian career after a lengthy spell out of favour under the previous manager. Here's Jamie Borthwick.
After 11 months, the end is in sight. Craig Gordon and Craig Halkett, integral parts of the Hearts rearguard, both suffered serious injuries in the same match last Christmas Eve. After gruelling rehabilitation, they're nearly ready to return. And there's more good news on the injury front.
Natty Atkinson and Barry Mackay have been involved this week in training, so in the coming weeks they'll look to come back into the main group for most of it. There'll be then a period of sustaining that level before we push to look for games. Craig Halkett and Craig Gordon are really close to being back involved in the squads, which is another positive for us.
Tomorrow Hearts host St Johnstone, which means a return for Craig Levine, who spent more than 20 years at Tynecastle as player, manager and director of football.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I love Tynecastle. It's, spend all that time there over the years and create relationships with people. Then it's an interesting fixture, really. So early in my career at St Johnstone.
Jair Tavares has been a big winner from the change of management at Hibernian. Cast out by the previous regime, the Portuguese has won over Nick Montgomery and kick-started his career.
At the start, he was probably lacking a little bit of confidence and belief, and really a clear instruction on what was needed from him in the team. But he's really receptive. He's an intelligent footballer, and he's a real hard worker. And I think you can see he's getting better all the time.
Hibs look to break into the top 6 when they face Dundee at Dens Park tomorrow. Jamie Borthwick, STV News.
St Mirren manager Stephen Robinson admits it's a huge blow after defender Ryan Strain was sidelined with a groin injury, which could see him out for a number of weeks. St Mirren welcome Livingston to Paisley this weekend. These are your Premiership fixtures. Champions Celtic take on struggling Motherwell. It's Dundee Hibs. Hearts against St Johnstone. Kelly travel to Ross County. And on Sunday at noon, it is Aberdeen v Rangers. Now to VAR, where the SFA's review panel say referees got 3 decisions wrong in the first round of Premiership fixtures. This penalty by Aberdeen's Bojan Majowski should not have stood, with the striker having hit the ball twice before scoring. This red card for Dundee's Josh Mulligan was deemed to be an error also by the panel, made up of former players, managers and coaches, as was Dundee's goal at Livingston, which was wrongly called offside due to an interference by Jordan McGee. Premiership clubs held a meeting with the SFA's refereeing department yesterday to review the performance of the technology. Last bit of news before I go, and Scotland's men have beaten Switzerland to set up a European Curling Championship final against Sweden tomorrow. Good luck to the guys. That's all your sport tonight.
Thanks, Ronnie. Well, it's certainly been a cold one today. Here's Philip with the weather forecast.
A breezy morning will be followed up with a flurry of fresh delights for lunch. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Hello and a very good evening to you. Throughout today we've been stuck under an area of high pressure which has put us into a northerly airflow, so that's meant we've been dragging in cold Arctic air from the north, so it has been feeling noticeably colder. That will continue as we head into the start of the weekend, turning just a touch milder on Sunday before things turn unsettled come Monday. Now as we head through this evening, we're holding on to the dry and clear conditions, so that is leading to a widespread frost forming as temperatures drop away. We could see some freezing fog patches too. In some rural glens, temperatures will get down to -6 or -7. For most towns and cities, though, getting below freezing. So it does mean for tomorrow it will be a very cold start to the day. Any mist and fog patches that have formed overnight will burn off quite quickly through the course of the morning. And then, for many of us, it's a fine, dry and bright afternoon to come. So a pleasant start to the weekend for anyone heading out and about. It will be feeling cold but crisp, with temperatures reaching highs of around 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. Looking ahead to Sunday, another fine day to come to end the weekend. We do have a couple of occluded fronts moving in across the country. This one just spreading in across the south-west, bringing with it some showers feeding in across Shetland and Orkney. In between, though, another dry day to come, and like I said, feeling a touch milder with highs of around 8 or 9 degrees Celsius. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Now, Edinburgh Castle has been transformed as the popular Castle of Light event returns for the festive season.
Its ancient walls have been lit up with a hall of mirrors and wands. Our reporter Laura Piper has been along to find out more.
Well, I'm here at Edinburgh Castle, where I've been having a sneaky peek at what's inside, and there are plenty of sparkling surprises. I don't want to give too much away, but what I can say is that the theme this year is magic and mystery. But Audrey, maybe you can give us just a few hints of some of the castle's secrets.
Yeah, well, it's really exciting this year. We are doing magical things like bringing the statues of Sir William Wallace and Robert the Bruce back to life after 700 years. You can check your runes out. You can meet Rex the Lion in the Great Hall with a magic hat on. Lots of magic for everyone to enjoy.
Thank you, Audrey. Well, it was just moments ago that big red button was pressed and this spectacular display officially switched on, with some very excited visitors eager to get inside. What are you most excited about?
To see the cool stuff. Seeing the castle.
Seeing the castle. Have you been in before?
Nope.
No. So this is a really cool night then?
Mm-hmm. Just the general atmosphere, I think, and the lights, and just being out in the castle and being in the castle rather than just looking at it from down below.
Well, over 100,000 visitors have come to this event over the last 3 years, and it seems that this year the castle is proving to be just as illuminating. Laura Piper, STV News, Edinburgh.
And finally, how about this for a cold plunge to brace yourself for winter?
A red deer stag has been caught taking a leap of faith and braving the chilly waters off Isla. Boat passengers watched on as he took a dip before swimming all the way across to the far shore. Once back on land, it was time to shake itself dry.
Fantastic pictures. Mind you, you do need a fur coat to do something like that.
He obviously doesn't mind the cold.
That's all from us. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.
Good night.